Welcome, everyone. It's so good
Bienvenido.
to see your shining faces today and this afternoon. This is our final session. I can't believe that we're here already. We are excited about the presentation that we have for you today and our speakers who are going to share their experience. And we hope to send you off with a bang, inspire you. So, this session is titled Hope for the Future, and that's really what we're looking for today to share with you and excitement in the future going forward. So just a little touch base on kind of our what we've been doing all along, but we will have interpretation in the channel. And so Adrian will be doing his thing. And if you need that interpretation, please join them. Just a little Zoom etiquette. We ask that you keep yourself on mute. We will have time for questions following each presentation. We like to see your face, so if you would share your video, but if there are other things going on or you're eating lunch, that's perfectly fine too. And then we will take questions from the chat if something kind of comes up along the way or a question you didn't have an opportunity to ask during that time, we will save them for the end. So we will start by just letting you know who our speakers are. Then they will have 10 minutes to present, and we'll follow up each presentation with about 3-4 minutes of questions for the presenter, and then we'll go on to the next person. So I'd like to start by introducing all of our speakers, and then we'll circle back around and allow them to share their stories. So first of all, we have Jana Davis. She lives on a farm outside of Bondurant. She serves on the Autism Society of Iowa's board, the Iowa Vocational Rehab Council at the state level, and works as a parent and educator partner coordinator for Heartland AEA. We also have today Nancy Baker Curtis. She's from Grimes, Iowa. She's a former teacher and educational leader, turned at home mom. She serves for Child Serve. And then we'll have Angela Palmer. Angela's from Sheldon, and she works at Season Center in Spencer as a family peer support specialist. And then Mary will be sharing her story. She's from Iowa City, and she works at the Iowa Autism Center at the University of Iowa Child Department of Psychiatry. So I'm going to turn off my screen and allow us to see each other a little bit better as our storytellers share. So Jana is up first.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Rachel, for the introduction. My name is, like Rachel said, my name is Jonna Davis. My husband and I live, and our 3 boys, I guess, they're important. We live north of Bondurant on a farm. It's just a hobby farm. We have a slew of animals and a big slew of big, tall, almost all teenage boys. We have a 15, 13, and 10-year-old. And kind of what brought us to this world was our 15-year-old was diagnosed with autism in 2008. And then our 10-year-old was diagnosed in 2013, both on the autism spectrum. So we have an interesting family. My nephew is also on the autism spectrum. So we bring awareness to wherever we go. So one of the big things that this storytelling is about is kind of what problems we've seen and how we've kind of addressed those throughout our communities. And one that I thought was important for our family, our middle son is neurotypical. And so that's brought in a lot of challenges for our family and a lot of different viewpoints for our family. So when our middle son was in about first grade, he was really questioning why his brothers don't play sports. They don't have kind of those inclusionary practices like he does. So something that we problem solved together as a family, that we love relationships, we love people. We started an inclusionary program at the elementary level at first. And then as things have progressed, it's went up to high school. So ultimately, it's kind of like almost like a Best Buddies program, only in our small district that is growing rapidly. But just an inclusionary program that brought forth lots of different relationship building activities with neurotypical peers and their special needs peers. So we have a great group of kids that will most likely go into really great things. A lot of our high school kids are going into special education, psychology, all the good things. So we're really proud of our son for bringing that forth, and then having us being included in that, and being able to include our amazing staff and all the kids around the community. So it's been a really cool little adventure for us. We've walked in parades together. We've done all sorts of fun stuff. So it's a really cool program. And this year, last year with COVID was a little crazy for us. So weren't able to have the program throughout the year last year. But this year they did also include the program to be, the high schoolers can use their volunteer credits. So that was something that was really cool for our family to do, and just address a small challenge that our son was able to see that our boys went through. So ultimately, that's kind of our big thing that we've done, and then our advocacy kind of just flows throughout our community. And just kind of wherever it takes us. I also work for Heartland, so it connects me with a lot of different families, and ultimately hopes for the future look a lot like just consistent inclusion for our kids, and just having a really big integrity driven life is what we look for. And that's ultimately our story. We're so happy to be here, so happy to live in Iowa, where Iowa nice is a thing, and we have each other to lean on. So I really appreciate you guys all being here, giving me a moment to chat.
Does anyone have questions for Jana?
Jana, what was I know what your motivation was, but what made you think that you could do this, or what gave you the confidence to jump out there and start making something that you thought should be there?
I think having, of course, our son, who was only, I think he was like 8 or 9 at that time, and thinking, if that's in his brain, why isn't it in others, and why couldn't we? And having a really close relationship with our educators has always been really important to us. So I think having already built really great bridges from our family to our educators helped us really in that gap of, there just wasn't a lot of confusion on why we wanted to do this. They understood our motives, that it was just all good. So when with our educators being so heavily involved, it was so easy, and it just felt like a breeze to really get it to go.
Nancy, I saw that you had a question as well.
I'm just curious about how you got this program started, and if you have any sort of like a template model for other districts that are looking to implement a similar program.
We are actually working on that this year, as with last year, COVID just totally, it gave us so much more time at home to really work on it as well. And it really gave us the motivation to do that peer credit, where the high school students can use their volunteer hours to work alongside their peers. So we're working on a template, which is amazing. And I'm sorry, what was the other part of your question?
I'm very interested in this because I think having individuals in high school exposed to families with specialized healthcare needs can help put those individuals on a path toward maybe being a direct support personnel or being a healthcare worker. And so I see that as being a wonderful advantage to solving a real issue in our state. And so I would just love to learn more about your program. I think it's great, and how we could potentially implement that in my own community.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I think that really the partnership that we had with our community school district has been absolutely influential in this whole process. Without them, this would have not worked at all. And when it was brought up to them, there was no hesitation. So I think really just having really great relationships has always been really important to us, and with our educators, of course, but then this just promotes that even more, that having this great, these great bridges through our families and through peer families and all those things. We do have a really tight knit, smaller community as well. So it was easy to spread the word. It was easy to get kids to want to be on board. And I think when other kids, and then it's just a very concise thing where it just the ebb and flow of it just went so easily. Because all of our kids know each other. So a lot of them have known each other since preschool. So we were so grateful and so blessed in that area. But 1000%, this all happened because our educators were so willing to put the effort in on their end as well. It was really easy for us. It was just kind of like an idea. And they said, yeah, let's do it. Let's figure it out. We worked really tightly with the counselors as well to find good fits for students. You can tell when you're in a classroom who's going to be a good peer for a certain student. So those people were absolutely essential as well. And it was just kind of an ebb and flow from there.
Jana,
That's such a creative and just a great initiative. I'm glad to hear of it. And Nancy, I agree with you. What a great kind of, of parallel benefit. Give folks who may go into the field some idea what it entails. So
thank you.
But
very proud of our son for the idea. He really gets all the credit. I wish he was here to talk, but he's also 13, so it's not happening.
not cool.
Yeah. Jana, we had a question in the chat from Amira. She was asking, what is the most challenge that you have faced during your journey?
I honestly think our biggest challenge is deciding how we parent each child differently. Even though we do have two on the spectrum, how different they are. We've been in the ABA community our whole lives as well. But then throwing in the neurotypical son as well, really has thrown a wrench in all the things. So that's been our biggest challenge, I feel. We're so blessed with a really great support system from our family. And so it's just been hard to build relationships between three boys anyway, where it's not a WWE match. That's how they communicate. And so that's been our biggest challenge for sure, is having how to parent each child differently.
We have time for one more question. All right.
Is this something the teachers have discussed with outside of that school or that district? Or, this would be a great initiative, as I said, mutually beneficial to kind of promote across the state. Do you feel like they have enough buy-in that they would kind of help?
Yeah, definitely. And now I'm with Heartland. It's definitely something that I'm putting in the ears of all the districts that I work with, just because it is so beneficial. I think that even the kids the neurotypical peers see the benefit of working alongside somebody that is neurodiverse from them. They're really finding the significance and gratitude for their own lives in that. And something, things that we never thought that they would be able to find. So I'm sure teachers would absolutely love to share. It's not this big thing. It's 10 or 15 minutes, or it's, oh hey, let's make sure we're playing with this kid on the playground. And it kind of gives those other neurotypical peers kind of like a big responsibility, like I'm a caretaker here. So it's a really cool thing, and I think it would be so great to see it across all of Iowa. Like I said, that Iowa nice can go so far for all of us. I wish we could scatter that around the world. And and just putting that in our kids is absolutely essential, especially in the climate that we're living in right now.
Thank you, Jana. I know that was inspiring to me, and I know it was to others as well, and really a model that we can take and use. Thank you for that. Up next, we have Nancy Baker Curtis.
Thank you, everyone. As Rachel said, I'm Nancy. I am a resident of Grimes, Iowa. I am a former 7th grade middle school Spanish teacher. I worked and lived outside of I lived in the northwest suburbs of Chicago in a community called Buffalo Grove for the 15 years. And for 10 years, I spent it as a teacher and partaking in educational leadership. In 2015, I gave birth to my second child, Charlie. He is my medically complex child. And by 2017, my personal life was pretty much unraveling like a thread on a sweater. As you pulled, it just kept coming and coming. Both of my in-laws had been diagnosed. One had passed away from terminal cancer. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, had died from stroke-related dementia. My mother had suffered a series of life-altering strokes, 4 of them, that would leave her a full-time wheelchair user and total transfer, requiring assistance or a lift to get out of her wheelchair or to any other positioning device. And my son, Charlie, would be diagnosed with a genetic abnormality known as a variant of uncertain significance, which is just about as terrible as it sounds. There's something strange in his genetic makeup, but we don't know what it is, and they don't currently research that specific variation. I took a professional leave of absence from my job and put what I thought would be a year pause on my path to being an educational administrator. And I focused on staying at home and being Charlie's personal advocate, in addition to traveling each weekend back and forth between Buffalo Grove and Des Moines, Iowa, so that I could provide respite for my dad. He had used up all of his paid time off and had used all of his FMLA, and he was in desperate need of sleep. And so I would pass my son off to my brother, who would care for him Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. And then I would pick him up and I would drive back to Buffalo Grove so we could do early intervention therapy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we would get in the car on Friday. And we did this from pretty much the entire fall and winter of 2017. And during that time, my son, who is incontinent and intellectually disabled, really struggled to find safe, private, dignified changing spaces. Like many travelers traveling throughout the interstate, we used our local rest areas, and like many rest areas, what you find in those settings are traditional wall-mounted changing tables that hold up to about 50 pounds. And by this time, Charlie, even though he was very underdeveloped, was much too big for the traditional wall-mounted unit. And so we fled outside, we changed in the grass in the back of the car, but it's Iowa and we have inclement weather. And so ultimately we ended up having to go back indoors, and we were faced with the dirty bathroom floor. As I said, not only is Charlie incontinent, but my mom requires assistance in performing all of her daily life tasks. In fact, over 61,000 Iowans require assistance with daily tasks like toileting and dressing and clothing and bathing. And their disabilities, they don't cease to exist when they cross the thresholds of their doors. And if we want individuals to have home and community-based lives, we need to provide them with equitable access to ADA restrooms, and specifically family restrooms. We need to recognize that caregivers cross gender lines, and that we have many caregivers, some of whom are in this group who I participated in the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute with, who provide care to a loved one of a different gender, and that person needs assistance with toileting. And so my family sold everything and I left my job when we moved to Iowa, and I started getting involved in my local community. I learned of a very powerful IFLTI graduate, Amanda Melhem, who had started a Facebook page called Changing Spaces Iowa. And I learned of her efforts with her local representative, Ann Meyer, to put a bill into effect. And she helped coach me along to get some height adjustable tables added into my own community. And I started following my local representatives and senators, asking them for their support. While we were not able to make really as much progress as we had hoped with our first legislative action, we came back fierce our second year with companion bills. And we persevered through COVID shutdowns to really help educate our legislators on why this is really important and this is an equity issue for a really large number of Iowans. And so while we were not able to successfully implement a legislative action item, we were able to work with other Iowans from around the state, including the guru of all family leaders, Julie Beckett. And we were able to meet with administrative officials from the Iowa Department of Transportation. Yesterday, their Transportation Matters for Iowa blog released their public statement telling the story of an amazing family advocate, Kristin Harr, who serves with me on Child Serves Family Advisory Committee. Her daughter Brodwyn is one of those Iowans who needs assistance. And Kristin happens to be an employee of the Iowa Department of Transportation. Iowa is going to be the second state in the nation that will have expanded ADA accommodations in their family restrooms. And I'm so proud to have been part of this. There were so many challenges along the way, pandemics, short-sighted legislators, absolutely, they were going to pour concrete slabs and fixed height tables. But I will tell you that reaching out, communicating, taking all the shots, because they're not going to fire me from my unpaid advocacy job, was worth it. Because they have decided to add beautiful, height adjustable, adult size changing tables that will improve access for thousands of Iowans across our state, including my son and mom. So it is not just about sharing your story. It's about collaborating with others, sharing other stories. Our voices are amplified through our connections with other individuals. If you had asked me when I moved to Iowa in 2018, if this was the path I would be upon, I would tell you no, that I am a Spanish teacher. I am an educational leader. But what I have learned is to pivot and to innovate, because I am desperate and I am in need of change. And only I can be the voice for my child, and only I can champion his cause. I am very fortunate to have found other families in my community, and we together have been able to amplify each other's voices. So when you're out there, please take these courses, refine your story, tell your story, practice your story, tell other stories, because your stories matter. And your story could be the one that will make that change. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Nancy. I have to tell you, I am on a text line for Iowa DOT and got that message sent right to my phone and opened it up and was so excited. So it's going far and wide, and you just never know. Does anyone have any questions for Nancy?
I have one.
Go ahead, Dayre.
Do you ever doubt that you don't gonna be accomplished what you was asking for your child?
I didn't doubt that it would happen. What I questioned was the when. Any rational individual would be compelled when you show them a picture of your child on the floor on a beach towel next to a toilet. And Irene, as you know, it wasn't just the picture of my son. Your son was there, Paula's son. There were, Adeline was there. There are so many families that struggle with this issue. And when you put them all together and you show them, I mean, the statement that the person said was very compelling. And when we met with him the last time, we pushed and we said, well, what about a ceiling lift? Because let's be honest, you can't assume everybody can transition and transfer independently. And here's what I'm going to tell you. While he did not say yes, he did not say no. And in that moment, I have hope. Because I believe that this is our Iowa roots. We are the nation that will, and the state that will lead the nation in this, right? It is our senator, Senator Harkin, who brought forth the ADA. And so it is only right that here in Iowa, we lead this pack. We are the second state to have these changes. Yesterday, another family advocate from Pennsylvania announced that she had a very exciting meeting with her PennDOT. Change is coming. Change is coming. We were able to put some really powerful comments for the U.S. Department of Transportation. Change is coming. This is our infrastructure. Not if it would happen, just when.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm coming now as a Latino, and my culture is kind of like coming from countries that has a lot of corruption, or the politics is not working together. What do you can tell us how that important it is here in America, and how we can learn to advocate for our children?
I think those cultural differences are just opportunities to educate, right? You're the teacher. You have the gift of seeing this world with two different ways. And I know from my experience in education and working with communities that there are cultural barriers at times to making progress. But again, your story and your ability as a mother to share your story, that's your power and that's your gift. And that can really help people see the necessity in doing these things. You know, I remember being in Mexico and struggling and seeing people struggle. There are no curb cuts, right? There is no lift on the bus. But that doesn't mean that those people aren't entitled to access and equity here. You can't talk about disability and exclude diversity, and vice versa.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for sharing your story and for really inspiring us. All right, up next we have Angela.
Hi, my name is Angela Plummer. Me and my husband live in Sheldon, Iowa, which is way up in the northwest corner. We have two girls who are 21 and 17, and our boy is 12, and he brought us to the world of special needs. He was diagnosed in 2011 at age 2 with autism. He is nonverbal, self-injurious behaviors, aggression, and has started seizures. Our problem came when our son was 4 years old and started his self-injurious behaviors, and having the lack of services and support in our rural area. Unable to find respite. The therapies that were there were not doing what was needed. We actually started some therapy through good old Skype years ago for the University of Iowa and the Center of Disabilities. Our local school did try as hard as they could to find what would work to improve everything for him, to find the right path for him. Unfortunately, we were at a point where we just couldn't do it anymore. So we started doing some research about what was out there. And we kind of had two options. One was going down to the University of Iowa for a couple weeks of therapy and training, or looking into a residential school for him. Unfortunately, there's not much out there for residential for kids with behaviors, especially with self-interest behaviors. Also those with mental health issues. So with the help of case manager, we got enough no's from places within the state of Iowa that we were able to get him into, at that point, what's called Children's Care up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It's now called Lifescape. Been there for 7. Made lots of progress. Our biggest challenge was, like I said, finding what was out there, and there wasn't anything out there. Luckily, there's been an uptick of ABA services in the state of Iowa. Still very lacking up here for services. But and then overcoming it from other people that we made the decision to place. I guess one of the best things that's come out of this is I have learned about some of the resources out there. How easy it is to apply for a waiver. Now the wait is not easy, but and what services are out there on the waivers. The national waiver, my son is on too. I learned about that. Learning how to find the connections within the state for not only myself, but for all the other families, whether it's autism or physical disability or a mental health disability. We're kind of all in different ships on the sea, but we're going down the same path. I guess my biggest hope is to connect more special needs moms and dads to each other for support, for they know about the resources, and that we can build better placements for our children and our adults that need that 24/7 care that we are unable to provide, for that they can have the best life possible.
Thank you, Angela. A lot of hard decisions being made there. Does anybody have any questions?
Angie, I've heard you talk about the sort of the stigma in your community around making the best choice for your child. Can you talk about how does the rural community get their head around that, and what's the ramifications for the choices you've made for your child?
Well, in our area, it's still one of those things that you kind of just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you do it. Asking for help or receiving help makes you weak. And having them understand what it was like to try to provide not only the care for our son, but the care for our children, our girls too. once I can explain to them that, he was doing 100 self-injurious behaviors a day, I was running on 2 hours of sleep, they start to realize, but a lot of them still think we just kind of gave up on him and we took the easy way out. And then, using that connection during the process and even afterwards with our community. We were so limited on what we could do with our girls within the school system and the community that they suffered not having us make that connection with the families and community.
Anyone else have questions or thoughts for Angela? Thank you, Angela, for being so brave and open and honest about those things. Things sometimes we don't think about.
I have one more question. What's the how much do you see your son? Like, are you able to visit, bring him home? What's the family life like now?
We bring him home 1 weekend a month. He is really kind of spoiled where he's at. He has a giant rec area. He has a gym, he has a pool, he has his own playground, and he's in the town of Sioux Falls, which there's so much to do up there. My town is like 5,000 people. So we don't have stuff to keep him as happy down here, so we normally only keeps him one night, because he does better with that routine. He's happier with that routine. And then we normally go up another time a month to see him and just kind of spend the day with him. Of course, with COVID, he was locked down from 2 days before his birthday in March until August. So we were unable to see him. And he doesn't really do video calls all that well. If we get his attention for 2 minutes, that's probably good, especially with him being nonverbal and not really having any form of communication. He uses about 4 to 6 pictures to communicate. But, it's been somewhat of a blessing in the long run for my girls, because they have a very strong relationship between the two of them. And they were active, they will fight for their friends and support their friends. So I think they're going to be ones who are going to be fighting for people with disabilities in the future.
Thank you, Angela, for sharing. And to our final speaker, Mary. Mary, just let us know when you want us to share that video.
Okay, yeah, I'll kind of give context for it, and then if we could play it, hopefully it'll, just give a visual. My name's Mary Roberts, and I am the parent of 2 children significantly affected by autism. They, like Angela's son, are nonverbal, have significant behavioral involvement, and intellectual disability, are starting to have co-occurring medical issues as they're getting older, seizure disorders, just a laundry list of things. Since as an aside, professionally, I'm a behavioral health consultant and the Autism Centered Coordinator at the University of Iowa Hospitals. I'm also the president of an organization called the Village Community, which is what I'm going to discuss, kind of how we brought that into fruition and why we felt it was necessary. So my children, since they were diagnosed at 18 months and 12 months, this is way back in the 90s, other parents have always been the best resource. We've had wonderful teachers and providers and consultants and everything, but we really found that we got the best information from those who had lived experience with their own children. We had a nice kind of block of time while they were in school, because school, inherently provides consistency, structure, a peer group is built in, goal-driven work. And as they got older, my children, Kelsey and Jacob, I really started to see more clearly that soft bias of low expectations that is often seen with people with more significant disabilities. And so as they got into high school, instead of working on something that was academic but accessible to their cognitive level, they would instead have them washing windows, wiping down cafeteria tables, picking up garbage around the school, which if that's something that student enjoys and finds purpose in, that's fantastic. But to just have it be kind of the assumption, I don't think that sends a good message, especially to the neurotypical students, that these kids are here to pick up after you. It just really, it made me very disappointed and also come to realize that, oh, things are changing as they're getting older. And as many special needs parents know, we're kind of haunted by the thought of what happens when we're not here to advocate for them, to keep people accountable who are working with them. And with my two, as I said, they're significantly affected. They need 24/7 care and supervision. And I don't have extended family that if something happens to me, I can depend on to make decisions in their best interest, much less to actually take care of them. I also saw this bias of low expectations when we would visit day programs. And a lot of parents talk about the cliff as kids get older, when they're aging out of the school system, or that environment's no longer functional or appropriate for them. And then it's just kind of a then what? And so, we went around and I wanted to make an informed choice, figure out what our options were. I didn't want them just sitting at home, watching TV, not having opportunities. And when we went and visited day programs, I was really surprised and disappointed because there just didn't seem to be expectations. I saw a lot of, sitting around, not being engaged. It kind of seemed like adult babysitting or supervision at best. And so that was disappointing and a little disconcerting. And it's one of those that we could complain about it or do something about it. And I was able to connect with a group of similar-minded parents at a guardianship shop just randomly who had concerns. So we didn't have a plan as to what we were going to do, but we knew we needed to do something. And we also wanted to show that this can be done better. We can have higher expectations for these individuals who are not necessarily going to be in a supported employment program or living with any kind of independence in the community. That doesn't mean that they can't learn. And that was our biggest thing, is that, I'm still learning and I'm old, and they're in their 20s. And why would we assume that they can't still learn? And if anything, I found with my children, their learning window when they're going through puberty, which is notoriously hard for any parent, but especially those of us with special needs kids. They didn't, the learning wasn't really, just the behavior was so contradictory to them being able to learn. So their learning window was actually once they got through puberty, and to then not be given that opportunity was just not okay to me. So my goal was quality of life. And just because they are not able to have a job in the community or, you know, whatever else, like a goal we're supposed to reach for, that doesn't mean that they can't still learn, have friends, participate in their community. And so we started meeting, not knowing what we were looking for, and kind of came up with what was initially a pilot called the Village Community. We kind of stole that from Hillary Clinton. It takes a community, it is a community, just inclusive. And sorry, is that, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not hard.
And so I a little video. There we go. Is that, can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Technology. I want to show a short video clip that kind of gives an overview of what we did come up with as a solution. And then if anybody has any questions, I don't want to ramble on about things that may not be applicable to your family or your situation, but if you have specific questions that you know, I can answer, I'm happy to. So Rachel, is that, are you playing that?
Diane.
Yeah,
Diane, okay.
you're ready to
Got it.
go. Okay.
All right.
My name is Ann Brownsberger, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Village Community. Personally, I've been part of this field for 22 years. It was my daughter's diagnosis that took me down this path. It certainly wasn't a path that I was on, but a path that was sort of chosen for me and one that I don't regret in any way. The Village Community is a small nonprofit organization. We were founded by a group of families who all have children of similar age. Because of the challenges that they all experience, what was available for them was not ideal. We have 16 members and 16 staff. What that allows us to do is to provide really focused and individualized care to our members. We all know each other very well. I love coming here every day and being greeted by all of the members and all of the staff. Truly, every day is a new day. Some days are tough, some days are great, and the next day might be just as great or even better. Our members truly are friends. They're friends with each other and they're friends with the staff. And they know, we have members that are nonverbal and members that are quite verbal. Members that have more physical needs and members that are more independent. And they really are good at knowing what each other needs. They're constantly learning. It's just being able to present information in a way that's meaningful to them, or finding that area that is most interesting to them, and allowing them to explore that and expand on that in a place where they're safe and supported and not judged. We will consistently be here. We will consistently be providing high quality care and education. There's just really a dynamic that's comfortable and familial, and I think all of our members and staff would say that they feel at home here. They can be themselves.
All right, thank you. So Annie articulates things much better than I do, less stammering. But one of the main goals is that we wanted to create, the village is small by design, because we wanted to create this familial setting. And as I had mentioned, with me, I don't have extended family that if something happens to me, I can trust that my child will be given care that's up to my expectations, or that will continue their quality of life. There's other families, as Angela had mentioned, who have neurotypical siblings, and they don't want the responsibility to fall 100% on the siblings. They want the siblings to still be involved, but it's on their terms. It's not out of necessity. And so basically it's a safety net that we wanted to create for both families and those of the children, those families and their children with special needs. And like I said, we didn't know what we necessarily were going for when we started, and it came to fruition pretty organically, and it was not easy, but it's something that was worth every late night meeting and phone calls to legislators and all these kinds of things. And yeah, it's just, like I said, it's not for everyone, but it is an option, and it can be done. That's one of the things that we hope in showing what we've done to give other families motivation to kind of think outside the box if they're finding that what's available is not necessarily a good match for their child. So is there any questions, or is there anything, Rachel, that you'd like me to share that I have not, that might be helpful for others to know?
I have a question.
Yes.
I just, my son is already in his senior year. I believe that before COVID-19, I was putting him in a waiting list for the village too. I've been asking to my social worker, but it seems like it's still like a long waiting list.
It's not so much that it's a long waiting list, it's the small by design part. And so we don't have turnover really. Once a family is part of the village, you're part of the village unless you choose to leave. So for example, my children are significantly behaviorally challenged. We don't say, oh, we can't work with that. We say, okay, who can we connect with? How can we, change a plan to make it more appropriate, get a behavior intervention plan in place. And so that's one of the issues with this, and why we can't serve an unlimited number of people, but we can hopefully give inspiration to other families to, if they do like this model, to start their own with a group of families that they work with or that they're familiar with. So yeah, it's one of those, like, yes, we do have a wait list, but we wouldn't be doing what our mission is correctly if we did not. Because like I said, the turnover is just non-existent.
Be part of the village, it will kind of like take a long time, or it can be really hard to be into a partner or be part of the integration. Do you ever think about to duplicate the model yourself, like other places, or?
No, one of the issues that we found is that some of the organizations, because the need is there, it's almost that you lose the plot in getting too big and trying to service as many people as you can. And so there's no like ideal solution. Our program is small, but if it was not small, it would not be the program that it is. We personally, the three of us who co-founded this organization make up the board. We do all of it on a volunteer basis to assure that our kids have what they need going forward. We all have full-time jobs outside of this. The village community was created literally between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. On many sleepless nights, because that's the only time that we could get together and discuss logistics and stuff like that. So it's not something that we're interested in duplicating, but it is something that we're happy to talk to other families who may be interested in starting something similar and just kind of, you know, what the process entailed. I see that Amira had asked who funded the program. None of us are independently wealthy. We're all, you know, paying our mortgage and bills, but beyond that, nothing fancy. We don't have any, you know, sponsors or rich relatives that have made this happen. We did have to become Medicaid providers. That was one of the hardest parts of the process. But once that happened, we did that not because we want to deal with Medicaid billing and all of that, but that is how a lot of, all of the folks that we serve receive their services. And that's what's going to be sustainable. We can set up, you know, trusts and everything else, but those services are going to be what they have going forward and past our own life. So we want that process to already be in place and running smoothly. But that is complicated. So, yeah. Dayron, I don't know if that answered your question. I wasn't quite sure what you were asking.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. It's just kind of like really hard as you know as they're getting older. It's more hard to finding places where to continue to advocate for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's, I agree, Diane. I was gonna say, if anyone can do it, you can, Darren. So.
Well,
Does anyone else have any questions or input? If not, thank you. And it's nice to see some familiar faces and names on here. Amira, hi.
Thank you, Mary, so much for
Thanks.
sharing your story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mary. And I'm happy to see you too.
All right, we have just a few minutes left. Let's just take a moment to give a round of applause to all of our presenters. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us. This is exactly what we wanted. I think, Diane, we really feel inspired and see that hope for the future and know that we now have even a village amongst each other to keep going. So just a couple of opportunities on storytelling. What a great lead in. And I'll let Diane talk about our storytelling for family leaders.
Thank you. Yeah, Nancy said it so well. It is the story of real families with a picture that motivates decision makers. And so we created this virtual online storytelling training. We are looking for great family members like you to join us. It will be held on Google Classroom, but there'll be 6 Zoom sessions. So it will be pretty interactive. You'll get peer feedback from other families, almost as if you were in the same room, but we're hoping to keep it virtual so that it's more accessible for folks across the state. So please consider whether you can join us for that. It starts in September, and we estimate 10 hours per month of your time, depends on how much time you want to spend in your story. So reach out if you have questions about that, and there's no cost to family members.
Thank you, Diane. And that will help you to feel confident and competent in doing a 10-minute story similar to what our presenters did today too. So. And then one other storytelling opportunity we have coming up October 6th through the 8th is a digital storytelling. This is an opportunity to bring your story into a digital format that you can share in your communities, on social media, with friends and family. Just the opportunities are endless with digital stories, and we're really taking down from our full story into maybe that window and helping convey an experience, a thought, a advocacy point, whatever it is that you'd like to go through and use as part of your digital story. So there are lodging and meals provided and a stipend as well. and that is a 3 to 4 minute story. Wrapping up our Empowering Family Leaders session, we want to get some feedback from you and find out what you think about the presentations and what other things you'd like to know about as we plan for next year's sessions. So there's a QR code on the screen, and Diane is going to drop in the chat a link to that if you don't have a QR code reader. And with that, we just want to say thank you for joining us for these sessions. We don't take lightly how important your time is and how much of a gift it is for you to join us. And so we encourage you to provide that feedback and also reach out if there's something, some support that you need or questions that you have. So here's our contact information. Any questions before we round out our time together?
Thank you for the opportunity to share. We appreciate it. And it was nice meeting the other presenters and hearing their stories.
Likewise.
All right, everyone. Well, have a good weekend. Good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. I was having a lot of trouble getting those links in there. It wouldn't copy for me. Bye-bye.